this morning.
Oh, you bet. I'm here just to talk a little bit about the ICF product and what I've been doing with it. I've been doing ICF now for 11 years, my company, Dougherty ICF. We've done everything from houses to new schools, military jobs, light commercial with some different retail stores. I guess the first thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit about the block. Right here you can see the plastic web in the block. That's the first question usually I'll have on the commercial jobs. How do I attach anything to this form? Well, right here, there's every 8 inches you have a nice web you can attach. If I spin the block around, that's what it normally looks like. The wide line right there is your web. Every 8 inches you can screw your drywall to it, your siding, so you're good to go. Another big thing is there's a saddle in here where you can set your rebar. A lot of other blocks we've used doesn't have that, so we can put that right in there, tie your rebar to that, and it's pretty easy of handling for the rebar too. We just did a school down in Kentucky, another one that actually won the second place award for the most energy efficient school. We built this as 70,000 square feet of ICF. The speed of this product is great compared to the original masonry or even steel studs. All right, there's many applications on the outside of the block that contractors and general contractors like as well. You can do anything from brick to tile. You can attach right on the styrofoam's already ready for the stucco guys. They come in and prime it and they're good to go. The electrical contractors like it as well. The tie actually stops about a ½ inch down. They can channel right through their electric chainsaw, works nice, or a hot knife for cutting in their boxes and their conduits. It's real easy to repair. You take spray foam to foam that back in to cover up the electrical or anything like that so you don't lose any insulation value.
Crew.
Depending on the size of the job and obviously the schedule, we have 6 to 8 guys, and we pour about 400 to 500 foot of wall in a 5-day work week. That's usually 14 foot high. The bearing is typically on these schools. And we have done dormitories as well, 4 stories, so you can do multi-story buildings out of this. It works great. Set the spancrete in between the floors and just go on up with your next story.
Does that work?
And when we pour in 4-foot lifts, usually 4 to 5 foot high, and we'll go all the way around the building if possible, or stop at a certain point. We'll put a keyway in if we need to stop the pour in the middle of the building, and then come back around 4 foot, as long as you make your 1 hour time pass, so don't have any cold joints in the wall. And then we have vibrators. We run down in the cavity of the wall to vibrate your concrete down in. And actually, believe it or not, all these little dovetails will fill in with the concrete once you vibrate that. We've had several tests done at the dormitory we did. They tested 275 areas and never found any voids in there. So if you run the vibrator through there, you won't have any voids. That was a typical thing too. They used to say, oh, you have holes where the web's here. Well, no, the concrete flows around the webs nicely and you vibrate a little bit. Everything fills in nice to avoid the voids. We did that school I was referring to earlier, Hardin County. We had a big radius in the front of that went up for 2 stories. Another job we did, a military base we helped out on. We had to cut actually the styrofoam out, and there's big hoop bars that tied inside, and we had to actually put the Simon forms over the front of the ICF. So there's any kind of application you need to do, you can do with the ICF. It's very easy. The ease of cutting, you need to cut 1 inch off. You take a little pruning saw, cut 1 inch off the block to make a 47 inch instead of 48. And that's the other thing. A lot of people ask, how big are your blocks? Well, typically it's just a cut down version, but they're 16 inches high, 4 foot long. This particular block is. And then they interlock on top. This would be the female, goes in the male to lock it in. And then to prevent lifting, a lot of times what we'll do is run a bead of glue right along the top to stick your last row on top. That prevents the concrete from raising your last row, which is very helpful. We tie the verticals on top, and if you want to, on the bottoms, you can take a piece of 2-inch PVC, cut about a 2-inch high piece, put it on your vertical stub that's sticking out of the footing already, and you can stick that right down in. And the nice thing about that, with the webs being every 8 inches like they are, your spacing is typically 16 inches on most jobs. So you go every other spot, stick a vertical down. And then these are also set up at 16 inches for vertical, or horizontal, sorry. And you can stick that in there as well. Makes it very easily for the guys. And we have been up to 8 inches, of horizontal spacing for rebar. And that's where these webs are nice too. They're every 8 inches. You can stick them in there, reach down inside the block, and tie that to that web as well. The tallest walls we have done were in the gymnasium on a school in Robertson County, and that was 42'6". So, and that was a straight wall. There's nothing in between it.
Wow.
The bracing is the biggest thing on making sure your bracing is correct, and then obviously all your OSHA safety regulations have to be in effect for something that high.
So tell me.
We have braces that attach right to the same webs that you're gonna attach your drywall to. Every 4 feet, we put our braces, and then there's a knee out, I call it, for our planks to sit on. And then there's handrail that hooks right into that as well. And then you have your OSHA approved scaffolding all set in. And we screw ours every block. We want at least one screw in every block to help pull it and push it. And when you're bracing, as you'll plumb your corners. So if you start in the corners right here, you're gonna get that plumb. Usually I use a laser if it's a taller wall because you get the true level then. And then we go down and level the other corner, and then come run your string line through and bowl your wall in. So when you pour your concrete, your wall's always gonna wanna move a little bit with all that pressure. And then you can push that back out. You don't ever wanna have to pull it in with the bracing. That creates a problem with all that weight in the wall. So if you get it bowed in, and you can go right along, and I have 2 guys who go along, straighten walls behind me as we pour. No, they're very straight. And I've had several, like the steel guys that come behind you setting the joist comment on how the walls are nice and straight, easy to work with. That's another thing for the steel guys. Let's say they have a weld plate that's going to go on the side of it. You can take your knife, cut out your hole, put the plate right in flush with that, and then strap it with a piece of plywood right over top of the steel. So it's very versatile as far as attaching stuff for other subcontractors as well. The plumbers, they'll cut holes in like a sleeve. They'll cut a sleeve. This here is a small version, but normally a lot of walls are 8 inches core, and you have your 5 inches, so your 13 inches. They'll cut a pipe at 14 inches, stick it through, and then we just run some of that spray foam right around where the pipe was cut in, and they're good to go. They can run whatever they need to out the holes. Same with electricians. No, they actually stack up nice. This brand here, Celblox, actually comes on pallets. There's 45 on a pallet, so you can move them around as your skid loader or a lift, stack them in a corner, and then bring them on as you need them onto the floor. And what's handy about that too, if the floor is poured when you get there, you can set them around the concrete and wheel them around with a pallet jack. That saves a lot of labor as far as man time. Definitely, yes. I mean, anybody that's stick frame, I did it for 7 years before I started doing ICF, and it's hard on the back. I mean, you're building them heavy wood walls, you're plywooding them, and you got to tip them up in place. And even if you use machinery, it still takes quite a bit of time. Where here, these blocks,
I don't even know.
it's less than 5 pounds anyhow for a block. I know that much. And my brother is 62 years old, and he's still out working like he's 30, because you're able to move this around. That's a good advantage of these. You can extend your lifetime in the field, where before, if you're 50 years old, you weren't out framing. I mean, you were done by then. Same way. I mean, the labor intensity on that, just carrying all them block around, you're going to carry 2 to 4 block at most around, and your square footage just goes way down. I can grab 4 of these blocks, stack them up, and carry them around, set them up on the wall. And also, like on the ground, when we get our planks up at 12 feet high, we just toss these up to the guy that's up on the plank. So you got one guy feeding them, that's all he does, go around, toss them up, saves a lot of time.
How's that work?
It does, and if you start out the corners are staggered 16 inches, so that way you have 2 ties staggered each way, so you don't have your joints running up and down the wall of your block. So it's already set up for you. Once you come out of the corner, it's 16 inches, and you can go right along, boom, 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 and someone can be tying in rebar. And that's usually what we do, is we'll have one guy work on rebar, another guy's building, and then we have probably 2 to 3 guys going behind putting the bracing up. That probably takes the most out of anything, is putting the bracing up. But to stack these blocks, you can stack them real fast. My son is 22 years old, and he does 3/4 of our block stacking already. So
Yep.
we usually figure about 11 square feet per man per hour. So if I have 6 guys on the job, we should be doing 66 square feet an hour. And that includes the pouring and the stripping of the bracing when you get done pouring it. So that's everything from starting out setting it, building it, setting your window frames in, and then pouring the concrete, and then re-stripping it the next day or 2 days after you're done pouring.
Time advantage?
There's a big time advantage, because now with this, with the ties in there, like we mentioned a couple times, that's all ready for drywall. Where if you have CMU in there, they have to go through and either screw or nail their hat channel on to attach the drywall to the walls. And this is already ready. And the same way with the masons like it for the brick, because they can actually have new ties they can stick right through the styrofoam. And they're about 3 inches long. They stick in the concrete, they get poured right in the walls as we pour. They don't have to go back through and try and attach anything, then their ties are all set up. And as far as like the masonry, I just had a general contractor mention to me, he said, next school we do, I want it all ICF, interior walls as well. He goes, because now we're waiting for masons to set our steel. We could already had half this building done while you're working on the other half of the building, and come back and finish their roofing and parapet walls.
A little bit.
Oh yes, definitely could. I mean, especially once you get a crew experienced, and I'm not the only crew out there, there's a couple other good ones out there as well, but you get a good experienced crew that comes through, they can definitely knock out a building a lot quicker than you will with either the masonry or the stick framing. And another thing is the cost is starting to be, with the insulation value of this and all the new codes that are coming out with continuous insulation, the ICF is really starting to step up and it's starting to actually save people money. Before they used to say roughly on just like a residential house, they'd say it's about, what, 5% more? I think we're down under that now with the continuous insulation codes. And then the time now your basement's all ready for drywall as well, you don't have to go through and re-stud it up. It's a huge time savings as far as that goes. One of the first schools we had done down in Kentucky, I done with another guy, Dave Zerbel, and the energy come back and they were saving $66,000 a year just in energy alone on that school. It doesn't take many years for that school to pay itself back. Whereas, you know, you get the conventional masonry and stuff, you still have the air leaks and the cold spots.
So they're,
Well, it's like stick framing or anything, you get the cold spots wherever the stud hits, you don't have that continuous insulation all the way out to the exterior of the building, where here you have the concrete in between continuous insulation. And with them interlocking, like I said, you don't have that thermal bridging coming through anywhere. That's the huge energy savings. Go through and I'm on the fire department as well, and you go through with the thermal camera and shoot a house after you built it. You can see right where every stud was, you can see where all the trusses are, you know. Now you go through with one of these, and we've done it before, you don't see any of that. Your house will still be standing after a fire. Same way with the tornado. We had a little town just east of us here, Barneville, Wisconsin. They got leveled by a tornado back in the day. I think that was 80, I don't remember the year now, 82 maybe. But there wasn't a house left standing that tornado went through. And I know up in Stoughton they had an ICF house up there that was built, and they were all level except for the ICF house is still standing. Right there, that's a testament that, you know, why aren't we building more of these houses? That's the question.
Right.
So, I think the biggest thing is lack of knowledge on the ICF product. It's hard to believe it's been around as many years as it has been, and people just haven't heard about it, don't know about it. You know, they hear a myth that, oh, that stuff's no good or it's not going to work, and then we go when we pour a 14-foot high wall, like I said, 600 feet long, and they're just looking at you like, you just poured that in 4 hours? You're like, yeah, that's a slow pour, but you know, and nothing blew out and everything's standing good and everything's straight. So I think it's coming around fast, and like I said, with the new insulation codes, I think it's really going to help the ICF market. And you know, more people have nice jobs. It's not a bad job at all. I was just telling the number of labor, the labor force, he wouldn't need as many guys to build the building as quick as if he's going to stick frame it. He might need 15 guys as opposed to 6. So he should be able to get it done for a little bit cheaper in labor numbers. And then also, you know, repeat business as a general contractor, because I did that when I was building houses as a general. Well, you want your customers to come back and have you build another building. If you build them a good energy efficient building like this and a safe building, you know, they should appreciate that and come back and want another one. Especially once they see the savings after a couple of years just in heating and cooling alone.
perspective.
And that's one of the hardest issues is the money, the dollar signs right away. Like you said, it is a little bit more money. It's not a lot. But the biggest thing is you want to tell the people, okay, are you going to live in this house for 5 years and sell it? And in 5 years' time, they figure the ICF is more than paid for the cost difference that's going to be there. Most people are like, yeah, we're building this new house. We want to live here for 20 years. It's like, okay, then take the number of savings that you're going to have just in electrical and heat, take it times 20 years and see what the cost difference is. So it's, the initial investment may be just a hair more, but the advantages of it are long lasting. You're going to have a safe house. Like I said, you don't know what could come through. I know there was a case down in Florida where a car had missed the intersection, crashed into an ICF house. The car was totaled, and all they had to do was repair the stucco in about a 4-foot area. So that was pretty neat pictures. The other thing as well is, you know, the cost as far as commercial now. The ICF is actually catching up to, let's say, the masonry. We bid a school, and we were, I think, $3.50 a square foot cheaper than the masonry school was. So now all of a sudden the architect goes, whoa, wait a minute here. Thought this was more expensive. I said, well, not for the time savings you have. You can actually cut the cost down. Well, I think you know, as a manufacturing end, I think the prices come down on the plastic and the foam a little bit. You know, everything's kind of leveled out. It's like anything new. Something new comes out, let's say the Nintendo came out right away. Right away it was $250. 6 months down the road, everybody was manufacturing it. You could buy it for half the price. And, you know, it's the same way with me. I've done more. When I first bid it, I was scared. I actually was. The bid, like, I don't know about this ICF. I've done woods for so long. It went great. I did my own house first. Went and started doing houses after that, and they haven't had a complaint on the housing end of it, so it's been real nice. And everybody that's ever lived in an ICF house said, I would never go back to a wood house. It's just so still in there and quiet. That's another thing, if, let's say you're by an airport or a high commercial traffic road out here, 18151, you don't hear the noise from the highway going by in the ICF houses. They're quiet. I know the biggest thing is make sure you have a qualified installer do it, whether it be myself or any of the other guys that are qualified when you're doing the big jobs. I know a lot of them actually have specs that you have to match. You have to poured like say a 20-foot high wall and so many square foot ICF, and that makes sense. You know, it kind of keeps everybody regulated and make sure that you can finish the job. Yes, every block that's out there has a certification. You have to meet certain qualifications. They can come down to Celblox CU and get trained. They have a minimum. I'm not sure how many hours that is now, but I've been through 4 of them myself with my different employees, and we come down and get refreshers. And it's always nice just to keep up with the new things on the market. I was just up to the World of Concrete, checked out all the new stuff out there. It's pretty neat to see, and ICF's really grown in that. I agree with you. 20 years ago, when they were first, ICF was not good 20 years ago, but like any product, there's been new developments, new ways for the ties to be fastened, stronger plastic in the webs, and you don't see the expansion and the swelling and the blowouts we used to call them, where you'd go to pour the concrete, you go through the second lift, and boom, there goes the corner blows out and concrete comes flowing out. Now, you know, the products are better and they work better. And like we touched on before, you know, the price of everything has come down and the price of everything else is still going up, so it's kind of starting to balance out a little bit. And with the new building codes, that's another great reason to look at ICF, the continuous insulation. I know Iowa just passed that, and I believe Minnesota just passed the law as well, that you have to have the continuous insulation from the footings up. And the same way with residential, you know, the inside now, they require you to insulate the inside of your concrete wall. Well, here, it's done in one step. You walk away, everything's done. Ready for drywall, ready for siding. It's a huge time savings, so. And that's the biggest thing. Anytime you can save time on a commercial job as well, I mean, that's huge money for the general contractor, because he gets fines for X number of days he's over the project schedule. Well, if I can walk in there and save this guy 3 weeks from the get-go, he's well off, so.